Hi BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner, and this is the last part of the Cozy Autumn book tag, which was listing books you want to read this autumn. I didn't have that list when I first filmed the tag, so I decided to do a separate video, and I'm trying to narrow it down because, of course, like always, I grabbed a bunch of books off my shelf, more than I could probably handle reading. And I mean, autumn is only like 3 months, and then it's winter time. So, actually, if you think about it, it's only like 3.5, because like halfway through November, winter will come. Because like probably you could probably read that after Thanksgiving. Winter is right is you could say that's when winter begins. I mean, I know not officially, but it feels like it. Um, I still have too many here, but so these are more like a list of books that I would ideally like to read, but probably won't happen, and this might even change. Um, okay, so first, this first book is kind of a newer purchase. It's one of these things where I feel like, I don't want my newer purchases, the ones I purchased earlier in the year, be sitting there for years. But I also, don't want to neglect the books that have been sitting there for years. So it's a bit of a it's a bit of a I don't a bit of a situation where it's like, kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg. And so this one is a newer purchase, but the cover, I feel like the cover could easily be an autumn cover, or give off autumn vibes or spring vibes. You can read it either month if you're a seasonal reader. And I am apprehensive about this book, because a lot of people's criticisms are the reasons you might not love it is because it talks about a certain thing that, it talks about it a lot, and if you're not into that, then maybe, this might not be the book for you. But I grabbed The Overstory by Richard Powers. And as you can see, it's all about nature, and going by the cover, I'm assuming forest, and talks a lot about trees. And it's a Pulitzer Prize winner. And it just, like I said, just gave me either spring or autumn vibes. When Barbara Kingsolver gave it a good review, left a blurb. Monumental, a gigantic fable of genuine truths. So I wonder if it's kind of has fairy tale vibes too. But yeah, and honestly though, I couldn't tell you what it's about, but I can read the back. It's just, and at the time when I bought it, I'm sure I read the back and was like, it sounded, was interested. And then, there's, to be fair, there's also like people like, I always forget her name, the actress from Game of Thrones, and she was in Me Before You. Come on, I know her name. What? Damn it! I always forget her name. I don't like that I forget people's names. But anyway, okay, so it says National Book Award winner Richard Powers' 12th novel, so it's 12th novel, is sweeping, impassioned works of activism and resistance that is also a stunning evocation of Panion to the natural world, from the roots to the crown and back to the seeds. The Overstory unfolds in concentric rings of interlocking fables that range from antebellum New York to the late 20th century timber wars of the Pacific Northwest and beyond. There is a world alongside ours, vast, slow, interconnected, resourceful, magnificently inventive, and almost invisible to us. This is the story of a handful of people who learn how to see that world and who are drawn up into its unfolding catastrophe. So it's probably going to focus on environmentalism and protecting the earth. And I do recall people saying that it felt like a bunch of little stories And I think I do remember because obviously I read at least a little bit of this where there was several different people in their stories. Maybe they're interconnected or something. But yeah, so I'm going to attempt this book, or I might attempt this book this autumn. Next is I had three Stephen King options that I was going to choose from, and one of them was The Stand, which is a much longer and a really long book, longer than one of his longest books, and it's the uncut edition, so it's even longer than the first publication. It was either that or Fairy Tale, but I decided to make Fairy Tale more of a wintry read. And I figured also The Stand. I have a lot of long books here, so including the Stephen King book I settled on. So I will come back to The Stand. I might still pick it up, but the one I grabbed was The Talisman by Stephen King, co-written with Peter Straub. And there's a sequel book, Black House. And this is a coming-of-age story and about a young boy named Jack. Okay, so Jack Sawyer, 12 years old, is about to begin a most fantastic journey, an exalting, terrifying quest for the mystical talisman, the only thing that can save Jack's dying mother. But to reach his goal, Jack must make his way not only across the breadth of the United States, but also through the wondrous and menacing parallel world of the Territories. In the Territories, Jack finds another realm where the air is so sweet and clear, a man can smell a radish being pulled from the ground a mile away, and the life can be snuffed out instantly in the continuing struggle between good and evil. Here Jack discovers twinners, reflections of the people he knows on Earth, and most notably Queen Laura de Locian, the twinner of Jack's own imperiled mother. As Jack flips between worlds, making his westward toward the redemptive talisman, a sequence of heart-stopping encounters challenges him at every step, an unforgettable epic adventure in resounding triumph. The Talisman is one of the most influential and highly practiced works of fantasy ever written. So I'm wondering if this twinner that is the twinners to his mom is evil, and maybe it's kind of like Neil Gaiman. That's his name. Neil Gaiman's that's the guy who wrote Coraline. Although Neil Gaiman's not in people's favor right now. He did some shady stuff recently. I don't know all the details, but on the BookTube channels that talk about stuff like that, he was brought up. But I'm wondering if it's gonna be like how Coraline has the other mother, and she ends up being an evil witch. I wonder if it's gonna be like that, where his mom's gonna have like an evil twin, and so, like, I mean, she says reflection of her. I don't know what that, but yeah, so this is the Stephen King book I've settled on. Like I said, it might change, but, it feels like something to consider. Or at least I'll start it anyway. Stephen King books do take me a long time to read, even though they're very easy reading, but they still can take me a while to read. And then there are parts that aren't as easy for me to read. So then this one is more of just one that I need to finally finish. And I don't know if I will make as much progress as I'll make on it, but this is The Brothers Karamazov. This is about these three brothers, Alyosha, what are their names? Alyosha, Dmitri, and Ivan. And they have a very fraught relationship with their father, and their father ends up being murdered, and they are the prime suspects. And it turns into this big thing, this big case. And it's definitely a very philosophical book. A lot, you know, and a bit of a character study. And so, I mean, in fact, it's taken, I don't even, like, I think I just got past the part when the dad actually gets murdered. Either that or I haven't gotten to that part yet. I don't even remember because, like I said, it's been a long time since I picked it up again. But, yeah, so, I'm in the middle of a chapter right now. I'm only in 300 pages. But I'm trying to finish, or at least make some progress on this book. So I figured this is another one that I can read. So it's not autumnal necessarily, but I decided this is the one I'm going to try to finish. But again, it's super long, so I don't know if that will happen or not. But we will see. So this is this is the next one I considered. And then this was an even more recent purchase than the Overstory. This one I actually bought back in August, and I almost bought the sequel to it. I mean, although the sequel, it's not like by the descriptions, it's one of these sequels where you don't have to read it right after, but it like what the main character in this book comes across, a new character comes across that same thing. So it's like the same world, set in the same world, but it's not like I don't think it's like where you have to read it right after this first one. Like, it doesn't continue the same story. And that is John Connolly's The Book of Lost Things. In the sequel, there is, like I said, there is a sequel. In this book, first of all, whimsical stories feel very autumnal to me. I mean, there's some fantastical stories that also give me summer vibes, but this one feels very whimsical. You have this very lonely boy who discovers a magic book. His mom died and he's grieving. And I think he starts to kind of focus more on his own imagination, getting lost in his own world. And things start to kind of his imagination in the real world kind of start to blur together. And then he ends up finding himself in another world with monsters and heroes. And there's a king and then the book is a book of secrets that this king made. This king kept his secrets in this book. So it kind of also gives me Narnia vibes, where like there's a magical land that a young child goes into. But I think it's a little more adult, and it deals with more. Well, okay, I guess Narnia did deal with a lot of adult themes too. It's World War II is going on at the time of the first couple books. So yeah, it just sounded really cool. This whole idea of, like, I always used to think, like, I love the idea of, the idea of going down the rabbit hole, going down the hole and landing in a magical world, or going through a magic mirror, or like, at my grandma's house, it's a one story, but she has the bonus room, and in the bonus room, there are these two little doors that go around the whole house. They're like the attic space, and I always like to imagine that there's a secret door, and if you go through those doors, there's a whole nother world that takes you to, even though it was really just, you go in through one, you walk around the whole house, and then you end up on the other side of the house, and come out through the other door, the door on the opposite side. But I like to think that there was a magical world. But yeah, this definitely feels very autumnal. So this one is a definite. It's just I was hesitant because, like I said, I had recently purchased it, and there are some books I've had for years that I felt like I need to get to, and books that, like Brothers Karamazov, where I need to finish it. So, but this definitely feels very Tamino with a magical world, and in dealing with grief, and that's the Book of Lost Things. I don't remember what the sequel is called, and like I said, I almost bought it, but I know that the sequel, from what I recall reading the back description, the sequel involves a little girl instead of a little, so and I guess she crosses paths with the book as well in this world. Okay, and then we have another classic, and this is it's called Belchamber by Howard Sturgis, and I never heard this classic, and like I said, I really like these editions, these New York, I always forget what the RV stands for, and I'm just gonna read the back, because I don't know if I remember what this is about, but Charles Edwin William Augustus Chambers, Marquis of Earl of Belchamber, Viscount Charmington, and Baron St. Edmunds and Chambers, known familiarly as Sainty, is the scion of an ancient English aristocrat family. Behind him stretches a rogues gallery of picturesque upper-crust scoundrels, but he's uninterested in the riding to hounds or drinking or whoring in the great tradition of his forebears. And though he admires his tough-minded, puritanical Scottish mother, he lacks her unrelenting moral self-assurance. Sainty is instead a sensitive soul, physically delicate, sexually timid, intellectually inclined, utterly honest, and thoroughly decent, but constitutionally incapable of asserting himself. When it comes to assuming the responsibilities of his inheritance, to managing his feckless younger brother Albert, or forthcoming sly cousin Clyde, and above all, to the essential business of marrying and continuing the family line, Sainty doesn't have a prayer. So, it looks like it's kind of a coming-of-age story, or, a young man that's trying to, he's in modern, he's not he doesn't fit on either side of his family, he's not someone with strong, he's not someone who messes around and does a lot and commits bad behaviors or anything like his ancestor, like those who came before him. But he's also, it sounds like he's also not at, goody-goody and moral, and super moral like his mom. And he's just, I'm guessing, and so I think it's someone that's gonna struggle and trying to fit in and figure out his place in the world. Probably someone I could potentially, and I feel like someone I could potentially relate to. I'm not exactly, I mean, not in the sense that, I have a saintly, not exactly I have the exact, I'm not stuck between a super saintly mother and my ancestors who are scoundrels or anything, but just that shyness and that, trying to fit in and caught between different mentalities and ways of thinking and moralities and such. But yeah, it sounded intriguing. And I wanted to, it's one that I wasn't familiar with, and it was and I'm just thinking, I want to try to read it soon and not have it sitting there and then end up forgetting about it and then deciding later. It's I'm not interested anymore. So I want to pick it up soon. And like I said, I'm putting it for now on my TBR for autumn. Okay, and then we have 2 witch books. And I have another witch book around here somewhere. But Once in Future Witches, and actually Larissa herself says she absolutely loves this book when I mentioned to her that I bought it. And then I believe there's another booktuber that I really like whose name escaped me, and I don't like that I can't remember these names. I feel like that's not a good sign when I can't remember names. But basically I've heard about this book on YouTube, on BookTube, and I remember when it came out. And at the time I was kind of trying to take a step back from the paranormal stuff, but I have recently come back to it lately, and like, I think it goes back and forth between the modern day and the Salem witch trials, and how maybe the modern day witches are trying to bring it back. Okay, well it takes place in the 1800s, so not that modern. And they're trying to bring, and I hear they're trying to bring witchcraft, and it has Declan Edges. I like Declan Edges. I mean, I can understand why some people might not love them, because sometimes Declan Edges can be thick and you can't necessarily get a good grip, and it doesn't look, and for some people might not like the not so neat look of deckled edges. Like, it looks like I could see, for those who, it can potentially look like pages that were, ruined and not cleaned up and gone through the publishing completely. But I personally like them. So yeah, I thought, I want to get back into witches. I always liked witches. So this sounded really cool and really up my alley. And then the other one was Olivia Blake. I've only read, actually I haven't read any of her books yet. Because I do have that first book that got her name out there. I haven't read it yet though. And the sequel already came out. So I should think about reading it soon, but I went ahead and bought this one too. Actually from Walmart. In fact, she has a lot of books out now, and I still haven't read any of them yet. These are the only two I have. This one, and then that other one, that first book she had published. This is a more paranormal, modern day story. You have two witch families, male witches and female witches that are rivals, and I believe that there's going to be the two of the kids from the rival families are going to fall in love, so it's going to be very Romeo and Juliet-esque story, but with magic. And it just, again, it sounded really cool, and like I said, I want to get back into witches more, and the cover was really beautiful, although I don't know if they have a special edition, the Atlas 6, that's what it's called, the Atlas 6, I don't know if they have any special editions of this, but I think it'd be really cool if they did have special editions, if they colored the roses red. I think that would be really cool, and maybe made the pages red. So I don't know if they have one for this one yet. I mean, it'd be cool if they did. But so yeah, I was gonna say I kind of want to do might possibly do a witch theme. Which, let me go ahead and show you the other witch book. So I did grab The Mummy, Ramesses the Damned by Anne Rice, because it's a shorter book, so I was thinking maybe I could read that. But then I also was feeling a little guilty, but like, let me finish this book first, which will take a long time. So I might pick up Ramesses the Damned at some point soon, maybe this winter. But I at least like to make progress on The Witching Hour by Anne Rice. May she rest in peace. I hope she is happy and has been reunited with her husband. This is about a family, the Mayfair family, group of witches that have been around for centuries, and their family has been haunted by this mysterious, shadowy figure that they I don't know if I think that this is because I'm getting it mixed up with the Dark Tower series, but I think they call him the Man in Black. Let me see, there's a description. And there's this one group of people that have been investigating these women, this family of women, the Mayfair witches, and one of their own, Rowan, was sent away to okay, yeah, it doesn't, there's no description, which is really annoying if I had never read this book before, but I have read it before. I haven't finished it, but I have read it. I had a mass market copy of it once. But, let me put those down before they fall. And, there's this group of people, secret society, that's been investigating them for years. And they have been keeping tabs on this one member of the family, Rowan, who is the daughter of Deidre, one of the witches who had been haunted by the Man in Black, and she ended up in an asylum where she doesn't speak. She just sits there and stares at the window, and they believe she's been taken over by this shadowy figure, and her daughter, Rowan, is living in California with some cousins. And she ends up saving the life of this young man, this young Irish man who almost drowned, and he now has the ability to touch the objects. I think it's psychosymmetry, where he can touch an object and see visions of what happened with that object. And Michael's his name. And Michael and Rowan have a love at first sight moment when he finally meets her in person, is thanking her, and she feels that she is being called back to New Orleans, while also Michael is being summoned there by this secret society, the Talamasca, so he can learn more about Rowan and her family, and maybe if he needs to determine if he needs to stay away from her or not, or if he can help her, because the mysterious Man in Black is going after Rowan next. So obviously this is the story I know the best, because I've read it. I've read a lot of it, the first little bit of first chunk of it multiple times. So it's one that's kind of stayed with me, and I do want to keep reading it. So this might be one I will read on and off this autumn. There's a lot of books here that will probably be more like on and off reads. Like I'll start reading them and then I'll put them down and start reading them again. It's very hard to. I still have a hard time narrowing these down. Which ones I want to read. And now we have one that I am apprehensive about, but I went ahead and risked buying it and getting it. Because I think if I can conquer it, I will enjoy it. And that is The House of Leaves by Mark Daniel Waske. And what makes me nervous about this one is it's written in an unconventional way. Too bad it's not a Victorian novel, because it would work for that. That one of the Victober challenges is to read a book that's, it plays with format, and this definitely plays with format, but it's not a Victorian novel. And but it's a horror story about a haunted house, going by the title House of Leaves. And it's a special edition. It's a colored edition. And it's like a lot of transcripts and recordings. It's a very unconventional story, and a lot of people say this book terrifies them. But because I'm a movie person, I've loved movies as much as TV shows, and I was a self-proclaimed couch potato, and I feel like movies scare me more than books. I think seeing an adaptation of this, if there ever was one, would scare me more than reading this book. I don't know, if I did think about what goes on in this book as I'm reading it, then maybe it would affect me. I don't know, but everyone always talks about how this book scares them. And I wanted to know why, and I love the idea of a haunted house story. I think that's so cool. Um, and it's, but yeah, I mean, in fact, I recently watched a Haunted House Story, a movie Haunted House Story. I watched 2005 Amityville Horror remake for the first time ever. I've not watched the original, but there was a specific reason why I chose that version. Um, and I enjoyed that movie, although I think it would probably be more effective watching that movie if I had watched that movie. Well, I did watch parts of it at night. I started watching it when it was late, and I wanted to get to bed because I had to go to work the next day. So and I always get up at the same time. Um, but I'm really liking that. So, and I've liked what I read so far, but I read a little bit of it obviously a few months ago. So yeah, and the whole idea of this, how this is written, how the format of this, I think is really cool. It's just overwhelming, and it's a lot. It's going to be a lot to read. So anyway, so there's that one, and then we have, this is another series I've been meaning to read. This was one that originally put this off, and when this is one of the ones that I started reading it, and I was like, I wasn't feeling it, and I decided, and it was sitting there for a long time. I was like, you know what, I'm not going to read this series, so I decided to let it go. And then Murphy Napier read this book and absolutely loved it. Granted, there's no guarantee that just because she loves it, I'll love it. I mean, I feel like we do have maybe a few books in common here and there, but I mean, I loved, but it wasn't just because she was recommending it, but also because I love the TV show. And I decided to give the books another shot, and the trilogy another shot. This is kind of, when this first came out, when people first started hearing about this, they said they compared it to Harry Potter, saying it was like the adult Harry Potter. There's the fact that the kids, they're going to magic school, but it's in college, but it's like Harry Potter meets Narnia in the sense that they also go to a magical world at one point, and there's the whole belief that from the show, I think there's, just like in the Narnia books, there's the prophecy that they will rule the kingdom, but from the show, I think the people of the kingdom were like, they didn't trust these humans kids. And I know the main character experiences depression, and they're just these not very, adults, young men and women who are just going through a lot of crap and are dealing with being adults, and they have a lot of mental health issues, I think. So it seems like such a different kind of story and a more serious, like less easy approach to fantasy, like not fantasy in general, but how we use, like, in fantasy stories, it seems all fun and easy, whimsical and magical, and everything is just a fun little adventure, and that there will be danger, of course, because there's an evil bad guy, but like it feels like a more complicated version of that type of premise. And like I said, I love the show, so I'm gonna, I think I need to give the books another chance. So that's the first one. And then we have, this one is, I remember hearing about this book, and I think Reagan from Peruse Projects did a vlog where she read this book. Ordinary Monsters, and it's set in the Victorian era. I mean, I could save this for October. Maybe I should do that. So maybe, yeah, that might be, yeah, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should save this one for October, so that even though it's not Victorian literature, it would fit the theme. Okay, so it's two children with mysterious powers. So I guess they're being chased. And so yeah, I think I'm gonna save this for October. I'm going to read this in October. Because it would kind of fit the Victober vibes. Because even though it's not a Victorian literature, it would still kind of fit Victober. So it just sounds like a cool premise. You don't see a lot of Victorian, like, you always see the medieval literature and, modern day stories. Maybe there's other time periods, but you don't, like, there's certain time periods that are common having fantasy elements, but you don't see, like, the Victorian period doesn't always do that. I mean, I think there's more and more books that are doing that, where they have time periods in history that have magic, where they're like, what if magic existed? So I thought that would be really cool. I mean, so I'm glad that there's more stories like that. And the fact that it's Victorian London with fantasy elements got my attention. It actually kind of also reminds me of, there's another book. The author of the Wayward Children series. She wrote a book. I don't know if it's a series, but it does have a sequel or a prequel. Where you have these kids that have powers, Roger and Dodger, and they were separated. They were twins, and they were separated, and then they are brought together accidentally. And they have, like, one is more language and reading, and the other one is math and science. And they end up coming together, and it kind of makes me think of that with the kids with these magical gifts and stuff. So yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm gonna save this for October. Okay. See, and then I have only a few more left. Then we have another more recent purchase. And that is The Secrets of Heartwood Hall. I already mentioned this book on a video. This is by Katie Lumsden, who is I think she would be considered the main host of Victober. Like, she's the creator of Victober. Her newest book is The Trouble with Miss Montgomery Hearst. I think it came out. And that's a book, and that's a book that, I don't know when I'll get that one. Hopefully soon, but I wanted to get to her first book, which is, a mystery book and a gothic house and a manor house. This woman, I think from what I remember, her husband had died, so she's a widower, and she comes to Heartwood Hall to be governess to, I think, a little boy. But she knows that there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this house. Yeah, I think, yeah. And, she forms a friendship with the gardener, which, if, I'm guessing that there's gonna be romance there, unless he's an older guy. Yeah, so, yeah, I think I got it. Basically, that's what happened. I think that's what it is. So, yeah, it just sounded really intriguing. Like I said, when she talked about it, I got really excited. I wanted to read it, but I know it took me a while before I got around to buying it. And finally I did. It was on my Amazon's wish list, but there was a lot of stuff on a lot of books on my Amazon wish list. And, unless I tell someone to look through the whole list and not just prioritize what's at the very top, then if it's farther down the list, then I might not get it. I might not receive it as a gift, and I might eventually have to buy it. I'll have to get it myself. Which, nothing wrong with that. It's just, like, first of all, it's not paperback yet, so hardback's gonna be a little more expensive. But anyway, so this is one that's probably more of a definite. this might be a Victober read. I don't know. Because like it's not Victorian literature, but it goes with the themes. It's Victorian vibes, so I might read it for Victober. Okay, so this one is more of a I just decided to go and do this because September's also 30 Books in 30 Days month, hosted by Kaylee from Luminous Libro. And this is a book that I don't know if it was I got it from I can't remember if I received it as a birthday gift or as a Christmas gift from my parents. But this is a Gilmore Girls picture book. So it's kind of a kid-friendly version of the story of the Gilmore Girls. So, in case you don't know Gilmore Girls, it's a show about a mother and a daughter. Like, Lorelai she comes from a rich family, but she and her boyfriend Christopher slept together when she was 16, and she got pregnant, and her parents wanted her to marry Christopher, but she felt like Christopher was not ready to get married. He was too immature. So, and feeling like she was suffocated by her family, she ends up running away and ends up in the small town of Stars Hollow, Connecticut, where she is taken in by this elderly lady who runs the local inn, Dragon, and she ends up working as a maid there and raises her daughter there. And it's about their life in Stars Hollow. They have a very close relationship, and unfortunately, Lorelai does make the mistake of prioritizing a friendship over mother-daughter dynamic. It's about her relationship with the various residents of the town. Her best friend, Suki, works at the inn as well as the chef. Her daughter, they had this local diner they visit run by Luke Danes, who's kind of cranky. And he ends up being a love interest for Lorelai later on in the series. And, the catalyst of the story that gets everything going is that Rory, they have set their sights on Rory going to Harvard when she's old enough, when she's of the college age, but she has to get into a prestigious school to put on her transcripts for if she wants to get into Harvard. But Lorelai cannot afford for her to go to this school, Chilton, and they have to talk to her parents, reconnect with her parents, and her mom requests that they come over every Friday night to have dinner with Lorelai's parents, so they can get to know their granddaughter, and they will pay for Rory's Yale tuition. And of course, the relationship is very fraught, but Rory kind of develops a bond with her grandparents. And it's also about Rory's relationships and Lorelai's relationships, not just with Luke, but with other people, with other guys. And it's just one of those it's like a warm hug. It's a comfort show. And yeah, you could argue there are some flaws to the show that you might not be able to make it today, but it's just cozy and very sweet show. A lot of readers can relate to Rory. Although as the show progresses, people don't love Rory as much anymore. She's not everyone's favorite, and people realize that she has a lot of flaws that kind of make her frustrating as a character. And it's just a really good, heartfelt show. And this, like I said, is a kid's version of Rory and Lorelai's relationship and a little bit of Stars Hollow, their community where they grew up in. And I believe there are other shows that they've done a kid's book version of the show, and, as well. But this was brought on my radar because of, I cannot remember, I haven't watched her channel in a while, but, there was another booktuber I do enjoy watching when I do watch her channel, where she had also recently purchased this book and did an Instagram post on it. And this is what got my attention, was her Instagram post talking about this book. Now the other one, I don't have it with, I guess I should have grabbed it, but will probably be more of a winter read. I mean, there might be some stories in it that could be applied to autumn, but I have a collection of that's similar to this, where it does a kid's version of a lot of Dickens's work, A World Full of Dickens. And I bought that. I asked for that one for Christmas, and I haven't picked it up yet, but I feel like I need to do that because I asked for it, and so I want to pick that up. I might pick that up as well. Unlike that one, it's not just one story, it's multiple stories. Multiples of, like, it's a handful of his novels simplified into a, easy reading version, a kid reading version. So I might read some of those. I don't know if any of them, if anyone to me would suit the autumn season, but I might read that as well. And they would, like I said, they would fit for the whole prompt, reading 30 books in 30 days in September. But obviously, whichever one of these books I read in September won't fit that. Because there's no way I can read some of these books and then read. But I figured throw these in there as well, just to at least try if I'm interested in it. Because every year I tell, when I watch Kaylee's video, her announcement video, I always say I'm going to do it, and I will comment on her videos and say I will, but then I never do it, because, there's longer books that I want to read over shorter books. So, I might try this year, knock on wood. But yeah, I feel like the show, a lot of people, like, this story, the show, and this, feel very autumnal. Like, especially because each season would start in the fall, in autumn time, because it's like, encompasses Rory's school years. So yeah, I figured maybe I can read this. And we have 4 more books here. Okay, so the 3 of these books are books that I were recent purchases, and I was debating, because whenever I get a new book, all of a sudden I'm excited for that book, I want to read that book, like, now. So I ended up taking them out as well. First, we have, there's a piece of paper in here, I think. Is there something in here? Yeah. Oh, it doesn't even have anything. It just has the word blue on it. So it doesn't have anything interesting on it. I love, like, going through books and at the used bookstore and seeing if there's any treasures in there. But, I'm guessing that was the last page the person read before they decide not to continue reading the book, possibly. Like, maybe that was their bookmark. But we have Doris Lessing's The Golden Notebook. And I think I vaguely recall hearing about this author, unless I'm just remembering from looking at this book. But it is this woman who put her, certain different times in her life in different colored notebooks. And she's slowly, I think, losing her mind. Or either that, or she wants to, like, yeah, she's losing her mind. I don't, I'm curious if that means has Alzheimer's, which would make this really sad and maybe even hard for me to read. She wants to bring all the notebooks together and put them in one big notebook. And that's what the title refers to as The Golden Notebook. Because each of her books are, like I said, there's the Black Notebook, which is all about her. She reviews the African experience. So I'm guessing she lives in Africa for a period of time. In a red one, she records her political life. and her disillusionment with communism. So maybe she lives in a communist country. And there's a yellow one. She writes a novel. And this one, I guess she projects herself into that novel that she wrote. Because it says she writes a novel in which the heroine relives her part of her own experience. And then she has a blue one, which is her personal diary. And like I said, she wants to put all of them in one big book, which is the Golden Notebook. So it just sounded like a really interesting, heartfelt read when I read that back description last time. And I love the idea of a writer putting like their journey of putting all their life experiences in one big book. Like the premise just that whole idea sounds really cool and fun. And it's a way for the author to tell their story and look back on their life. Like I love stories where characters look back on their life. And then we have the other most newest one is The Emperor of Ocean Park. This is by Stephen L. Carter. This was one of the ones where I've looked at it multiple times and I thought about getting it, but then I changed my mind because I wasn't so sure about it, if I would like it or not. But it's a family saga story. Have our main, and this is the author's debut. This was the author's debut novel. You got our main character, Talcott Garland. I hope I'm saying his name right. He's a law professor, and a father and a husband. He has a pretty good relationship with his family, a good life, but then his father, who is a judge, is murdered. And he ends up dead, and Talcott suspects he might have been murdered. And Talcott decides to investigate and determine if his father was murdered and who murdered him. But it's at putting his marriage and his career and his life at risk. So it's just like this time when I actually bought it, that time it just kind of clicked for me. It just sounded engaging at the time when I bought it this time around. And I don't know, like, here's my problem. Like, I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna save this book and put this book away for now and come back to it later. I'm thinking, and it's like, it's not gonna go away, it will be there. But then I always end up feeling guilty and feeling like, oh, but what if I forget about it? Like, what if it ends up sitting there again for a long time because I get distracted by other books? So I'm like, oh, maybe I should read this one now, but then I have so many other books I want to read. So it's very like I said, I'm thinking, oh, I want to pick up this book, but then I'm like, oh, but maybe I should just save it for another time. Then what if I save it and then I don't get back to it later because I get distracted? So it's an endless cycle for me. Okay, so I have 2 more to go, so I might read this one, might save it, I don't know. So we got the most recent purchase is The Rose Labyrinth by Tatiana Hardy. Again, another one of those ones where I kept passing it up, and I would read people's reviews and I was hesitant and thinking, well, they don't love it, but then I feel like, but sometimes I do wonder if, even though I actually physically read the reviews, I don't just look at the star ratings, but I actually will read the reviews, and I try to pick the 3-star reviews because I feel like those are a little more neutral, and will like look at both the good and the bad of the books. But this one is kind of one of those ones where I think a character like, is trying to investigate some conspiracy theory. It even says, heart-pounding thrills of the Da Vinci Code. Okay, so I'm just gonna read the back because I don't remember what it, and it's been a while, so I don't remember exactly the premise. So nearly 400 years ago, brilliant Elizabethan spy, astrologer, and mathematician John Dee. Again, that name keeps coming up. John Dee. I mean, I'm currently reading Foucault's Pendulum by Umberto Eco, and they mention John Dee in that book. And then you have, and then also I think this same historical figure is in Shadow of Night. Because, like, Diana and Matthew have to go to, I think it's Portugal? Or, not Portugal, or Prague, and talk to Rudolph, the Emperor Rudolph, and I don't know if it's the same emperor that is mentioned in Foucault's Pendulum, but he does have someone. They were sent to fetch the queen's, like, I don't know if it was an astrologer or whatever. And I think it's the same guy, John Dee, and he's being held captive there or something. I don't know exactly if it's the same guy or not, but I would have to look back. But if it is, that name keeps coming up. But I'm guessing that's because I keep reading books that refer to that time period. The Elizabethan era. His shocking ideas in 3 precious boxes, the only clue to their whereabouts, blocked in a series of intricate riddles passed down through his female descendants. Now the ancient puzzle and a tiny silver key have unexpectedly landed in the hands of a beautiful young London-based documentary producer, Lucy King. Compelled by a strange connection to the mystery to the handsome Dr. Alex Stafford, whose family is inextricably linked to the legacy, Lucy embarks on an international adventure to unlock the hidden treasure of the Rose Labyrinth. Each new secret she unearths from Alex's long-buried family history reveals a bizarre coincidence that draws them together. But a dangerous force is on her trail, and the closer she gets to the end of the maze, the deadlier her quest becomes. So that academic feel of, it gives off academic vibes, like history and like something from the past affecting the present, like a conspiracy that happened being brought to light again. And just these 2 characters going on this quest to find, it gives me Dan Brown vibes a little bit. With the premise and everything, which it does say at the top. Heart-pounding thrills of the Da Vinci Code. And these more academic feels very, these academic type stories where someone trying to investigate the past feels very much an autumnal experience. So this is the last more recent purchase, because this last book I'm going to mention, it's been at least a year or 2 since I bought it. And that is R.F. Kuang's Babel, and I think this was also a Walmart purchase. Their small selection in the back near the movies of, like, their magazine. They have magazines over there, kids' books, coloring books, adult coloring books. And then they have that selection of books. It's not a big selection, but it's like bestseller type books, and it's probably similar to what a lot of the books that you would find at the airport, at an airport bookstore, which I get. So this is it's fantasy light, I think. Like, the magic system isn't as prominent, I don't think, in the story, but it's set, and I've already, again, this was another one of those ones where I started reading this book, and oh, wait, this is the one that had the bookmark in it, I think. Now I don't remember where it was. Well, although I guess Goodreads will show me. It's set in the 1800s, and our main character, Robin, he was taken in by a, I don't know if he's taken in by this rich American or British gentleman who kind of raised him and then he ends up sending him to this school called Babel, where it's a institute for translating things, and of course, and I think it explores colonialism and just the long throughout history of colonialism in America, taking over invading all these countries, the English and Americans invading all these countries, and just this, how it has changed things and affected these different non-European countries, and how the negative aspects of that. And I've just been meaning to read this. I also would love to read her other book. Let me see if it's Yellowface. I'm interested in that. That one is one of those ones that I might see it if it's on Libby or something and not necessarily buy it. Or if I ever finally do go back to the library, maybe get it from the library. There's 2 books from the library I want to get. There's that one I would like to borrow from the library if I ever go back to visiting the library. That one, and then of course, the last book is Stephanie Garber's Once Upon a Broken Heart. That's like that for her first series, Caraval. It's a trilogy, so there's one last book I gotta read. I still haven't gone to the library. I always talk about going, but then there's always, oh, but where, we might visit my grandma or my sister, so, I can't go because, I don't want to have to worry about a library, having to return a library book, or bringing it with me and then forgetting, and it's I have to prioritize the library book so I can return it and not have to keep renewing it, but then I don't prioritize my own books, so, yeah, so those are the books that I'm thinking about reading this autumn. I feel like I need to, again, go through them and decide which one of these ones should be for October and November. I'm only kind of have my October TBR, so I'm really deciding which of these books will be more November reads. But again, I feel like I'll look at them and be like, okay, I'm going to put that aside for November, but then I'm like, oh, but what if I forget about it? And it sits on my shelf. And also my mom, it makes my mom, it bothers her a little bit when she comes to my room and sees stuff, my books all spread out on the floor, because it's like a mess, for her. So I have to, I don't want to, I try to, if I know at one point I'm gonna, she might come in my room at some point, I feel like, okay, I better put these away. Even though, yes, it's my space and everything, it's still, it still bugs me. I mean, it still bothers me because I still feel when I know that it bothers my mom. But anyway, so yeah, those are the books I still probably will sort for them again and see if any of, and just go all through all these one more time and see if I can separate them out into September reads, and November reads, because like I said, I kind of already have my TBR for October. But anyway, that is the last part of the Cozy Autumn book tag, which is my autumn reading list. I would love to know what you are reading. If you are a seasonal reader, what books are you gonna read that give you autumnal vibes, and you feel like this would be perfect for this season, or just love to know what you're currently reading. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, click subscribe. If you haven't already, click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. I hope you are enjoying your reading so far, and I will talk to y'all later. Alright, bye!